Hey folks, John here, Old Hickory Forge. Welcome back. So, what's going on today? I'm down here in the workshop. Going to be making a steel rose. It's going to be a birthday gift for a good friend of mine, and the holidays are coming up, so it's about time to start making gifts for people, stuff like that. So, template I'm starting with right here. Got it off Instructables. I'll put a link in the description below. I just printed it out and made like 30 copies. Should keep me going for a while. What I got here, this is 16 gauge sheet metal. I've gone ahead and cut out with the angle grinder, broke the corners, roughed it up a little bit. You'll see why here in a minute. But I got one piece 4.5 inch, two that are 4 inch, and then 3.5, 3 and 2.5. And that's plenty of material to make your rose petals. Now, before I get started, Blacksmith's Depot actually sells pre-cut rose blank kits for about $11 or $12, and it's going to take more than $11 or $12 worth of labor to make these petals. So, if I could go back to the beginning knowing what I know now, rather than buying a 4 foot by 6 foot sheet of 16 gauge sheet metal that I still have over half of 2 years later, I'd have just bought the rose petal blanks. But anyway, let's get moving. Went ahead and got my first petal cut out. Obviously, your biggest petal goes on your biggest piece of steel. Your second biggest one and the little bottom piece are the ones that go on your 4 inch squares. That's why there's two of them. But all you need to do, take your piece of steel, take you some of this fancy spray adhesive. And that's why we roughed up the steel a little bit. Just stick it on there. Boom, perfection. Now I'm posted up over here on the bandsaw. Got my petal blank on my piece of metal. All I'm going to do is just go through and follow my lines and cut it out. There really ain't nothing to it. You could do this with a hacksaw if you have the time and the patience, but I don't, so I'm using the bandsaw. And then just go through and drill you a 3/16 inch hole in the center of each petal. Nothing to it really. So to make the stem, I got a piece of 1/4 inch round. I'm just going to forge a taper on the end. This is where our petals are going to go when it's all said and done. And then I'll just go through with some kind of offhand, errant hammer blows. Texture the whole thing, give it that nice forged look. And while I got the forge hot, I'll go ahead and make a couple of decorative leaves that are going to be welded onto the stem. After final assembly of the rose, I got a video on leaf making. If you scroll back, you'll find it. But I'm just using some 3/8 inch round. Nothing to it really. So, now we're just going to go through and texture the petals with a small cross peen. With how thin the metal is, you lose heat so fast, it's easier just to do it cold. Alrighty, got all the petals textured. See, we got those nice cross peen marks in them. Let's assemble this thing. So to assemble the rose, you just take that end you tapered and point it up in your vise. The reason we drilled a 3/16 inch hole and used a piece of 1/4 inch round for the stem is because that square taper, as we beat these petals down on there, we'll kind of ream out that hole and lock the petals in place so they can't turn. So what I'm using is a tool called a rivet header. It's basically just a piece of round stock with a little hole drilled in it. Nothing to it really. See, now the petals can't turn. Also, when you're doing this, make sure you offset the petals a little bit so they cover up the cuts in the previous one. It just makes for a better looking finished product. So now it's time to assemble the rose. I got all the petals put in place. So what we're going to do is heat up this little exposed bit of metal from the stem. We're going to peen that over, and that'll be what actually fixes it all together. You can use a small handheld torch like this one. It's just a little bit slower, so I'm going to use the cutting torch over there. Just be careful not to melt your petals, because with this thin 16 gauge stuff, it can happen. Not a whole lot to it. Basically heat it up and peen it over like you would if you were riveting a pair of tongs together or something. So, there's about what it's going to look like. Before you go any further, just shake it a little bit. Grab these other petals, try to spin them. Sometimes that tapping can kind of loosen them up and you might have to beat them down a little further to get them nice and tight. But there's no play in it, so we're good to go ahead and start turning the petals. Not a whole lot to it, really. I just got me a pair of needle nose pliers. I'm going to heat the petals up, lift them up, curve them kind of in on themselves a little bit, about like that. Just turn them where they need to go. Tilt that end out a little bit. And if you're doing it right, it should look about like that. And you just keep working your way around until you got a rose. So, just keep working at it. When you get towards the end, the bigger petals can be a little bit more of a challenge, but the principle's the same. Not something you can rush. So we're starting to look like something, but as you can see, the rose is still pretty splayed out. So one of the last steps is just to take you a mallet, go to the face of your anvil, and I'm doing this cold, the rose isn't hot, and just gently kind of consolidate and bring everything together. Just makes it look a little nicer, and it'll remove, see how we still got a little bit of player right there? That'll remove that. Closing it all up will. You just gotta kind of be gentle with it, take your time, work your way around. So, got the leaves welded on. It's tricky to do, especially if you're not a very good welder like me, because the material is so thin on the stems of the leaves, it's really easy to burn through. You got to turn your amperage and your wire feed speed way down. But as you can see, these welds are ugly, so we're going to get in here with a needle file, clean them up real nice, and then we'll heat them with the torch, bend them where they need to go, and be just about done with this thing. So, last step, just got a little bit of heat over the whole rose, about a dull red, black heat. I'm using vegetable oil to put the finish on it instead of beeswax, because I find the beeswax likes to kind of gum up in the crevices between the petals and it just doesn't really look good. So the vegetable oil just puts like a smooth, you know, anti-rust, nice black oxide finish on it. But that's about it. So there we go. One steel rose. It all came together pretty nice, I think. So lighting in here kind of sucks, so you can't really see the detail and the texturing on the petals and the leaves too good. That's why I showed it to you outside first. But it all came together really nice. You know, it looks good, it's pretty. It's not going to die in 2 weeks like a regular rose will. Just a pretty cool, pretty simple project idea I wanted to share with you guys going into the holidays. It might be a cool gift idea for some of you folks out there to make. It can be accomplished with a pretty minimal metalwork tooling setup, you know, like a hacksaw and a small torch. You can make one of these. But that's going to do it for this video. If you like what you saw, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Always more cool stuff coming, and y'all take care.